people, and of the 9,000 people or so who voted, only 300 of them were registered Republicans. So we do very much have, we have a Democratic Party, we have a Democratic Party town, but within that, I think there's some very clear factions or groups, that are both within that idea of a Democratic Party, but which are very different themselves. And some of those groups, I would consider, and they'd probably consider themselves more progressive, and others of those groups are more moderate Democrats. And so we do, I think, still have a very robust debate, on that political spectrum around things like what we should do for affordable housing, what should we do for economic development, what should we do around education. It's not like everyone has the same ideas, but I do think that the conversation is further to the left than the conversation is in a city like Raleigh or a city like Charlotte. And that is, I think, a lot of that is because Durham has been affordable, has been a place where ordinary folks have been able to live. It's had a very strong Black community and a very strong Black working class and Black middle class here in Durham. And so I definitely think that diversity is threatened by the direction that our city is heading in, by this increasing lack of housing affordability. The fact that all of the new housing that's going into downtown is not affordable for anybody making Bay Area median income or below. We're talking about apartments going for $2,000 a month, which is more than my friends pay in D.C. for their apartment. It's more than one of my friends pays in Brooklyn. So, yeah, I mean, I think that we're in a very tricky situation, and it's hard. We can't control the private markets. Our economic system is organized in such a way that it's designed to maximize profit for investors and not quality of life for residents. And so we're stuck basically doing whatever we can with government resources and nonprofit resources, and we can do a lot. I don't think it's hopeless by any means, but we can only do so much to solve this problem, and I think it's gonna continue to be a problem, and we need some really exciting and creative solutions to ensure that people can continue to live in this town, and that we can maintain our diversity and our inclusivity and all those things that really make Durham, the city that it is, and the city that we all love so much.
And I know we had Felicia on, and we were talking about the fact at that time, this was maybe a month or two ago, about Durham and the whole concept of Durham being a sanctuary city. I was wondering what some of your thoughts were on that as well. And then the other thing that I was going to have to address is the whole concept of we have Durham, and of course we have all the growth in Durham, including the DPAC and the Bull Stadium and all that that's surrounding it, the new high-rise hotel. But then we also have in the middle of that the jail, and I know some people have been concerned about that. So I was just wondering what some of your thoughts on those two issues were.
Sure. So, I mean, I absolutely believe that Durham should be a sanctuary city. The problem is that we have state laws in place that prohibit us from being a sanctuary city, and that goes back to this larger problem of state preemption of local authority, that the state government has the right, nearly absolute right here in North Carolina, to prevent cities from passing laws and overturn any sort of legislation that cities pass if they disagree with it. And that was what we saw during HB2, right? The Charlotte City Council passed a non-discrimination ordinance, which was, the best non-discrimination ordinance in the state. And these, transphobic bigots in the General Assembly decided that they didn't like that and immediately took action to pass HB2, preempting Charlotte's ordinance, and starting this cascade of retaliation boycotts from around the country, companies and the NCAA and other cities and states, until they were finally forced to repeal it, though what they replaced it with still preempts cities from passing non-discrimination ordinances. So I think the issue of sanctuary cities goes to this much larger problem of how much local authority cities should have, and North Carolina has one of the, if not the most restrictive state governments in the country. We have absolutely no home rule provisions. We have no constitutional protections we are basically banned at the state level from having any kind of meaningful local democracy, and I think that's a real problem, both for for a city like Durham, which I think we would have we would be a sanctuary city if not for the lack of authority to become so, and we just don't legally have the ability to do that. What we have been able to do is pass a number of resolutions affirming our stance on welcoming refugees and immigrants to our community, opposing any kind of religious or ethnic discrimination, such as the Muslim bans that have been put forward by President Trump and by the Trump administration. We hosted a Durham Refugee Day celebration at Durham Central Park, which brought together the two major refugee resettlement agencies in the community along with the city, and hosted like a family fun day for kids to come out and families to come out and listen to music and learn about these organizations and support refugee rights and refugee resettlement. I've spoken at a number of rallies supporting the right of immigrants to live here in Durham. We passed a resolution recently supporting DACA and urging Congress to pass the DREAM Act. So I believe that we have done everything that we legally can to make it clear that we believe this city should be welcoming, should be inclusive, that we support the organizations that are working with immigrants and refugees here in this community to make sure that anyone who wants to make their home here in Durham is able to. So that's what we can do, and that's what I would advocate that we continue to do. And I think that as we move forward, this issue of state preemption, it's a national issue, and there are national campaigns working on it. There's a campaign in Florida based out of Florida that I recently joined called the Campaign to Defend Local Solutions, that's working on state preemption across the country. And so, I think this is an issue that a lot of cities are dealing with. It's something that we're gonna continue to deal with. And the best way to move forward on a lot of these issues that are being preempted by the state is to get rid of that Republican supermajority over there in Raleigh. We need to flip a couple of seats so that we have a say. And now that it's been, determined by the Supreme Court that the North Carolina General Assembly was unconstitutionally gerrymandered and is effectively, an illegal constitution of elected officials, the fact that they passed these laws that preempt cities who actually have, a legitimate claim to being democratically constituted is even more frustrating. And so I'm hoping that when we draw new districts and we have new elections, that we'll have fairer representation over there in Raleigh. And on the issue of the jail, I think that it's gotten – I'm glad that the jail has gotten so much attention. I'm glad that folks who are incarcerated there have felt that they have had the ability to speak up and speak out by writing letters and meeting with folks in groups like Inside Outside Alliance. I feel like we've heard a lot more in the last couple of years about what's happening in the jail than we have before. And tragically, there have been a number of deaths in the jail from medical neglect, from situations that could very easily have been, medical situations that could very easily have been treated if people had just been taken to the hospital, had just been given their medication, had been listened to. There was a person who died in the jail after telling jail staff that he had swallowed drugs and was feeling sick. He died of a drug overdose from a leaky bag of drugs that he had swallowed when he was arrested. And that, if that person had been taken to the hospital, it's very possible that their life could have been saved. And so I think that the issues at the jail, especially the jail deaths, have really concerned the community and, are of great concern to elected officials. I think, the county commission is the body that's responsible for the funding for the jail, and the sheriff's office, also an elected official, the sheriff is responsible for running the jail. And so the city doesn't have a direct role in management, but we do have a very specific role in that something like 60% of the inmates at the jail are brought there by the Durham Police Department. And so our police department and our practices and when and how we choose to arrest people and take people to jail impacts the jail community and the population. And even the people who are arrested and brought to the jail by the sheriff's department or by ICE are Durham residents. They're largely city residents, and so we're talking about people who are our constituents, who are our residents, whose families are living in our city, and whose lives are important, and who are valuable members of our community. And so I'm glad that there's been so much attention that's been paid to the jail. I'm hoping that that it'll result in some meaningful reforms. This push toward video visitation is really concerning because research has been done that's shown that in the vast majority of facilities where video visitation is implemented, that ultimately becomes the only form of visitation, that people are not able to actually visit their loved ones. And it's kind of a misnomer, right? Like when you call someone on the phone or like do a video call, you don't say that you visited them. It's a phone call. It's a video conference. It's not a visit. It's very different. And for people, kids who have an incarcerated parent, especially, and people who, just anyone who wants to see their incarcerated family members, I think that visitation is really important. And we have to remember that we're dealing with human beings who have rights and who have value and dignity as human beings. And so I've been glad that there has been a lot of attention paid to the situation at the jail. I'm hoping for some improvements, and I think that the continued community pressure and continued activism around the situation at the jail has had a huge impact and will continue to have a big impact in our city.
Now, you are your proud parent, like you've mentioned several times, of two kids of your own. How do you think we're doing in terms of the education and the school system? I know that you're a city council, but you as a parent, have a view of the school system and how we're doing. So I was just wondering how you think we're doing in terms of our education system here and also on the national level, if you don't mind sharing your views on that.
Sure, happy to. I mean, my oldest son is in a Durham public school. My youngest will be starting next year. We've been very happy with our school. It's a great community. We, have been very satisfied with the instruction, and we've been really happy in DPS. I have a number of friends who are teachers and are employees of Durham Public Schools, and they work incredibly hard every day to make sure that our kids have what they need. I think that the challenges that we face are challenges that are not specific to the school system, but are challenges of our greater society, right? There have been, a lot of schools in Durham are branded as, quote, low performing on this letter grade test. A lot of schools are given D's and F's. But it's been shown, mathematically, statistically, that the strongest correlation between those school grades, the strongest correlation is with family socioeconomic status. So it's not actually that, that some of these schools are high performing and some are low performing. It's that some schools are high poverty and some schools are low poverty, and that the primary, just because of the system that we live in, the primary determining factor of how a child does in school is the socioeconomic status of their family. That's a huge problem. And that's something that, I know that educators are acutely aware of and are always trying to make sure that those kids from those lower income working class families are being given all the resources that they need to succeed. But it really is, it's an issue that is so, it's endemic to the society, and asking just teachers to tackle that issue all on their own is completely nuts. We also have a huge racial achievement gap in our community. In Durham public schools are, I think, something like 70 to 80% Black and Latino. So we have a racial achievement gap. We also have the issue of kids who are coming to this country and who have limited English proficiency and are learning English. Our schools are now like 30% Latino, and a lot of those kids grow up in homes that are primarily Spanish-speaking. We only have one, I think, bilingual elementary school program in Durham, so we throw these kids into English-only classrooms and expect them to succeed at the same levels that kids who have been speaking English, in their homes since birth succeed. That's just unreasonable. we need to be, we need to be doing more. And I think everyone wants to be doing more, and there is just this huge